What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this Monday edition of For the Love of Wrestling. I am, of course, your host, the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Thank you, everyone, for joining me here today. It's going to be a long one, so buckle in because we've got 4 different shows we are going to be discussing today. We've got Rampage, Smackdown, Collision, and Battle of the Belts. Let me just find my starting page here. Yes. Of course, everybody knows I take notes on everything. So, what is up, Stat Boy? I see you in the chat room. Appreciate you being here. But yeah, I've got a ton of notes to go through, hopefully to help catch everybody up, give my thoughts on the show for the week. So, Rampage took place from the Fort Bend Epicenter in Houston, Texas. Rocky Romero versus Mystico started things off. 2 out of 3 falls match. Of course, Mystico, best known to us American fans as Sin Cara from his hit or miss run in the WWE. It was a pretty slow match to begin with. Excalibur kind of gave us the history between the 2 competitors on commentary. Catch us up since a lot of us don't know why these 2 are really fighting. This is Mystico's first match on AEW programming. And we get a very early submission from Mystico to take the 1-0 lead in the match. Picked up the pace after the first fall just a little bit. Good back and forth action between the 2 of them. Rocky Romero was able to dominate a good chunk of that portion of the match and got a pinfall with the sliced bread number 2 / acid drop / Dudley dog, whatever you want to call that move. For me, it's always been the acid drop. It'll always be the acid drop. Let me see here. Pace picked up even more coming out of the second fall, going into the third fall. We had planches, we had destroyers, we had hurricanranas, and Mystico was able to pick up the third and deciding fall with a submission, winning the match 2-1. I thought this was a cool little match to start things off with, and it kind of showed what Mystico could really do given the opportunity. It makes you wonder if his WWE run was botched because of limitations and the WWE style or whatnot. See here what we got over here in the comments. Yeah, I agree. That match did open up a partnership for CMLL and AEW, and apparently they were very happy. You know, hopefully come Forbidden Door next year now, we'll have New Japan, CMLL, and AEW all kind of sprinkled in with the Forbidden Door concept. I think that would be great so that the Forbidden Door concept doesn't get stale. Because that's what I worry about right now. The first one was amazing. The second one was good, but not as good as the original because it was like, well, we've kind of done this. Plus, there's a lot of New Japan talents that are regularly featured on the AEW broadcasts. So it's just kind of one of those things where if the talent is already on the show, how is it truly a Forbidden Door? I mean, hell, Jon Moxley is a New Japan's talent. Eddie Kingston's a New Japan talent. Ospreay, Takeshita, these guys are New Japan talents. We then go backstage, and Team Jarrett and Eddie Kingston are back there. Stokely Hathaway, who I guess is the general manager of Ring of Honor, conducts the interview, and Jay Lethal begins to run Eddie Kingston down, saying he doesn't even care about the Ring of Honor championship, that he just wants to hold it because of Homicide, who trained Eddie Kingston, and says that Homicide wasn't even a good champion. Hathaway makes a match for Collision where it'll be Jeff Jarrett versus Eddie Kingston. And if Jeff Jarrett can get the victory, Eddie Kingston will have to defend the Ring of Honor Championship against Jay Lethal. I thought this was a pretty good promo. It was good to let Jay Lethal get some of that fire out of him again. Traditionally, Jeff Jarrett is the spokesman for the group. So seeing Jay Lethal kind of get a little bit of shine there was very cool. Hello there, Pop. Good to see you. Second match was a triple threat match. It was John Silver of the Dark Order versus Kip Sabian versus Brother Zay, with the winner getting a shot at Orange Cassidy at Battle of the Belts. Fast-paced action from all three competitors. I don't really care about any of the competitors in the match, though. Dark Order is dead. They've been dead for a minute. Truthfully, the Dark Order has been dead since the Exalted One Brody Lee passed away a couple years back. May he rest in peace. Dark Order just hasn't been able to find its footing ever since. So why they're still together, I don't know. Kip Sabian, seen a couple times, doesn't really impress me. Brother Zay, formerly of Private Party, running with the Hardy Boys. Okay, I like the Hardys, but I'm kind of good on Brother Zay, so I was indifferent to this match, regardless of the outcome. But I was impressed by Brother Zay during the match. He definitely looked like he was about to win, but John Silver was able to break up the pinfall attempt and get the victory on his own. We then get a video package for Santana and Ortiz and everything that's been bubbling under for them in their rivalry. Apparently, they'll face off next week in Philadelphia. We then get Brian Keith and Exodus Prime versus Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. This was just a standard squash match, nothing special. Again, I talked a couple days ago last week when I did my Dynamite review about how the guy I used to live with always said that he enjoyed AEW because it wasn't a bunch of squash matches. And between Collision, Rampage, and Dynamite, I think at least half the matches that were presented on TV, and those three shows were squash matches this week. It was just ridiculous. Granted, they had more TV time as far as actual wrestling goes, but if the matches don't mean anything, why am I going to care as a consumer? Why am I going to buy a ticket to go see Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, a pay-per-view? Pay-per-views, they wouldn't have the squashes, but you get my drift. Why would I buy a TV ticket if I'm going to see a bunch of squashes? I want to see matches that matter, matches that are going to build stories, matches that are going to have repercussions. The only person that should really be having squash matches right now is Wardlow, because you're trying to build the badass back up after basically murdering him for the better part of the last year. But I digress. Next we go and we have a segment with Renee Paquette interviewing the former Jericho Appreciation Society. I guess they're calling themselves 2.0 now. Daddy Magic, Matt Menard, Cool Hand Angelo Parker, Daniel Garcia, Jake Hager, and Anna Jay were all backstage talking. And they all start to combust a little bit over how over Daniel Garcia's dance is getting. And Daddy Magic and Garcia are like face to face getting riled up because Daddy Magic wants him to basically cut the shit out. And Daniel Garcia is trying to get over. The whole JAS gimmick was about sports entertainment. Even though Daniel Garcia is a tremendous wrestler, he's now found this entertainment gimmick with his dance, and it's over. And Anna Jay ends up trying to calm everything down, and they say that what they want is a real chance to get the trios titles at Battle of the Belts. So if they want that opportunity, they're going to need to squash the beef. And Daddy Magic says that he hates the Dans, but he loves Garcia, so consider the beef squashed. This was a very entertaining segment from the less featured members of the former JAS. You know, I really like the team of Daddy Magic, Matt Menard, and Cool Hand Angelo Parker. I don't know what it is about them, but the chemistry between the two of them is just awesome to me. Daniel Garcia, again, great up and coming wrestler, definitely has the it factor. But when you think about the JAS, it was always Jericho and Guevara that were featured. Garcia was maybe next, and the rest of them barely got TV time. So to see them getting this opportunity to shine, I thought was great for the team. And honestly, I would like to see Daddy Magic, Matt Menard, and Angelo Parker get a shot at the titles. We then go backstage and we do another segment, and the Elite cut a promo about how since Hangman Adam Page was involved with Swerve Strickland, they haven't really defended the Ring of Honor Trios titles. So they issue an open challenge for Dynamite, which we find out later in the evening is going to be answered by the Hardys and Brother Zay. So on Dynamite this week, that'll be a match. Finally, our main event, Ruby Soho versus Sky Blue. This was a fantastic match. Great pacing, lots of back and forth action. Sky, I'm not sure if she's supposed to be a heel or face here, though, because she's giving arrogant heel vibes, but the crowd still loves her. You know, I'm not going to sit here and try to front on why the crowd loves her. I know why the crowd loves her. Sky Blue is gifted in certain areas that have nothing to do with her wrestling. We will just leave it at that because we don't need to go down that rabbit hole at 9 o'clock in the morning. Don't need to go there, but y'all know what I'm talking about. And especially her coming out with her Scooby-Doo inspired garb. You know, her outfit looking like the Mystery Machine, an SB collar around her neck instead of the SD for Scooby-Doo. Why is it that all of the females that I've started to kind of gain an interest in since getting back into wrestling a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, have all started to turn to the darkness? First, it was Cora Jade. Loved her, got behind her in my NXT, and then she turned heel on Roxanne Perez and has been journeying down the darkness ever since. Then Thea Hale, again in my NXT. Such a bubbly bundle of energy. And then because of a couple of losses and a couple of failed opportunities, she started to go more toxic, hanging out with JC Jane, going down the dark path. And now this was Sky Blue. Ever since getting misted by Julia Hart and the House of Black, she's been slowly spiraling down this dark path. Willow Nightingale got the same mist, but as we'll find out when we get to the Battle of the Belt segment, she's not going down the same path really. You know, thanks to dubious means, so a little bit of cheating there going on, Ruby Soho was able to get the victory. And again, this is where I get my question because, like, Ruby Soho's a heel. And if Sky Blue's a heel, why are we having this heel versus heel match? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Post-match, Chris Statlander comes out, try to save Sky Blue from the 2-on-1 beatdown that ensues by Ruby Soho and Saraya, the two outcasts. When she tries to help Sky Blue up After showing her support, Sky Blue just rolls under the ropes and walks away. She wants no part of Chris Statlander. That was it as far as Rampage goes. Let me see here. Keen Mike's not a fan of Sky Blue, to be honest. I'm curious why, dude. I mean, I think she's a good wrestler. Maybe not a great female wrestler, but she's still young, has time to improve. What is it about her that you're not a fan of, if you don't mind elaborating? Mikey says Dory loves Scooby-Doo. Of course, we all grew up with Scooby-Doo. I mean, for real. And if you want to see the ring gear picture, just go to AEW.com and look in the photos section. She was on both Collision and Rampage. You can find it there because she wore the same outfit on both shows. Keen Mike saying, it seems like a lot of the new generation girls always turn crazy or emo. I mean, you figure when you've got women from the Attitude Era like Crazy Trish, Crazy Victoria, Crazy Mickey, AJ Lee to kind of look up to and pattern your gimmick off of, it's kind of easy to see why these girls would be going that way, because whereas those women grew up idolizing the Sherrys, the Alundra Blazes, the Miss Elizabeths, now these girls are growing up idolizing those women. Okay, so she doesn't have a gimmick that you like. Well, maybe this transition to darkness will open up a little bit more personality within her and we'll get a little bit more character development. I do agree she's been kind of bland in her presentation as of late, prior to the Mist, but still a decent enough wrestler in my opinion. All right, so that is it for Rampage. We're going to go into SmackDown, but before we do that, and I know normally I don't run commercials because I only have one show to talk about usually, but in order to break up some of the monotony here on the Monday episodes, we are going to throw to a little brief 40-second trailer just to kind of, again, break the monotony up. So we'll be right back after this brief message. So those are all the watch-alongs that'll be coming up across the multiverse of media here, leading into WrestleMania. Some dates and times still TBD, but we know that we've got those things on the schedule. Kicking everything off with Halloween Havoc tomorrow. Noah and I will be watching that and calling the action, giving our live reactions to that. So from there, we go to SmackDown, as I suggested, and the show opens up with Paul Heyman in the ring, and he's talking about how happy he is that Jimmy Uso cost Cody and Jay the tag team titles on Raw. He mentions how the LA Times broke the news about Roman Reigns versus LA Knight. Yeah, going to be happening at Crown Jewel. And then he talks about how much he admires Knight, but then runs down everything that the tribal chief is going to do to him. LA Knight comes out, he berates Paul, compares himself to Michael Myers because he just can't stop and won't stop. We go to our first match of the evening, and it's Santos Escobar versus Montez Ford. This was a great opening match, but it was predictable to me since Santos had what I refer to as the LWO B team at ringside. He had Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro instead of having Carlito and Rey Mysterio. If Carlito or Rey had been there, then maybe he would have won. But having the B team, the job squad of the LW out there, kind of knew he was going to lose, considering Tez had Angelo Dawkins and the almighty Bobby Lashley at ringside. Let's see here. Lost my train of thought here. Case in point, Tez took advantage of the ringside chaos brawl between Cruz, Joaquin, Dawkins, and Lashley in order to roll Santos up for the 3 count. Carlito then hits the ring post-match in an effort to try to even things up, bringing a chair out, causing Lashley and Dawkins to scatter. Of course, last week we may remember, well, I can't say last week because the show we're talking about was last week, but the week prior, Carlito was first kind of like welcomed to SmackDown by Lashley, and he tried to challenge Lashley for his first singles match now that he's back, and Lashley kind of wanted no part of him. So once Lashley was in there getting the upper hand on Santos, comes out, try to further that storyline advancement. I thought that was a great move. Hopefully we'll get that. I don't know if I want to see that at Crown Jewel or if I want to see that at Survivor Series. But either way, I definitely think we can build to maybe a traditional Survivor Series match. And you have Mysterio, Santos, Carlitos, Cruz, and Joaquin versus Lashley, Tez, Dawkins, and 2 other people. Maybe Logan Paul, since he's got the match against Mysterio at Crown Jewel, and then 1 other person here. If he's not booked as part of anything else, maybe Dom. Recruit him to try to get in the mix again, mixing things up with his father. But we then go backstage and we see Bayley and Dakota Kai kind of hyping Io Sky up for her main event match against Charlotte Flair later on in the evening. LWO is backstage and they're trying to console Santos on his loss. Mysterio comes in and he thanks Carlito for the help, trying to help look after Santos Escobar, and says that the LWO is family. He then says that he's going to go take off and go respond to Logan Paul. And Zelina asks if he wants the LWO to be there at his side since the LWO is family. And Ray says that he's going to handle this on his own. So this, I think, is going to start to plant the seeds of the LWO heel turn. Because Santos works better as a heel. Carlito works better as a heel. Zelina and the other 2, I'm honestly kind of indifferent on, if we're being real. I think Zelina probably works better as a heel too. Joaquin and Cruz, questionable. Ray's always been the babyface, with the exception of a brief time in WCW when the Filthy Animals were supposed to be heel, but they got cheered anyways because it was WCW booking. But yeah, I think this is going to be what starts to plant the seeds of the heel turn, because if the LWO is family, why don't you want your family there? You just made a point to talk about that and bring that up, but you don't want your family there for this big moment. Seems a little shady to me, and you could even see kind of a look between Carlito and Santos as the segment ended. We then had a video package of Pretty Deadly now that Elton Prince is back. They're in a spa, getting a pedicure, getting their toes done and everything. And the Brutes kind of show up, Ridge and Butch. and they scare the bejesus out of Pretty Deadly. Very horror movie-esque in the way it was shot and executed. Very funny promo. I thought I definitely enjoyed it. Jimmy Uso comes to the Bloodline dressing room, boasting about what he did on Raw. Solo gives him the cold shoulder, and Heyman said that he mentioned it in his promo because Jimmy is all like hype, like, did you see it? Did you see it? Did you see it? And Heyman's like, yeah, I talked about it in my promo. But he stops when he sees John Cena arrive on the TV in the locker room. We then get a John Cena promo talking about how it's been 2002 days since he won his last match. And the crowd is showing him love, saying how much it means to him, and says it's been a rough day since he learned that truth. You know, he talks about Roman's run with the title and how he's been the champion for 1,140 something days, but Cena's gone 2,002 days since having a televised pinfall victory, singles victory. That's 2018. He then begins to mention retirement, but he believes that he can turn the numbers around, and he pities the next men to walk the aisle because the change starts tonight. And Solo Sikoa comes to the ring. Solo and Cena begin fighting, but there's no referee, so it's not a legitimate match. Jimmy comes out for the ambush, and a man in black jumps the barricade and attacks Jimmy. Reveals himself to be Jey Uso, not a surprise there, getting revenge for his brother having cost him the title. Security get the brothers out of the arena, and Solo goes for the Samoan Spike, but Cena gets him up for the AA, and the segment kind of ends. So we got a couple of things going on here because it looks like they're going to set up for Solo Sikoa versus John Cena, probably at Crown Jewel. And we're getting the first teases of what will more than likely be potentially the night one main event for WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia in the city of brotherly love. It may be brother versus brother, Jimmy versus Jey Uso at WrestleMania. The key, though, is not overdoing the angle. We know there's the heat between the two of them, but we need to keep them separated and not constantly having them interact. There's supposed to be a brand split. There's supposed to be separate rosters. We need to try to keep that going for this angle to work and for us to want to wait until WrestleMania. The next time they should interact would be Survivor Series, possibly on opposite sides, then have them not interact again until the Royal Rumble, have one of them eliminate the other, and then we get to Mania. But this whole one pop up on Raw, one pop up on SmackDown thing needs to stop. Even if you throw the other pay-per-views, PLEs in the mix, Crown Jewel, Elimination Chamber, don't know if there's going to be a December one, that's fine. Have them interact there, but they need to cut the interactions on the weekly broadcasts. Let's see what's going on here. Statboy says, what about Survivor Series? Cena, Jay, AJ, KO, and Sammy versus Roman, Solo, Jimmy, Finn, and Damian. That's not a bad shout. The problem, I think, right now is that with Sammy and KO having been separated, I don't know if they're going to try and bring them back together for the Survivor Series. I think maybe replace KO with Cody. And I'm not sure about the AJ part of it either. I'm sure we can figure somebody else out to throw on that side in AJ's place. But I definitely would say replace either AJ or KO with Cody Rhodes and maybe throw LA Knight in the other spot, especially since it'll be on the heels of Crown Jewel. We all can pretty much bank on the fact that LA Knight isn't going to beat Roman at Crown Jewel. So he'll be out for revenge against the Bloodline. So yeah, I say take out KO and AJ and put in Cody and LA Knight. But not a bad shout there, Stat Boy. We then get a video package for Logan Paul and Rey Mysterio. Go backstage and an SUV rolls up. Logan Paul gets out of it. We then get another video package hyping up the Unholy Union, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, saying that they're coming. Then we get another backstage segment. You realize there's only been one match so far. I'm going to get into that a little bit when we get to the end of this, but we then go backstage again, and Nick Aldis fines Jey Uso $10,000 for disturbing his show, and then has security escort him out. Adam Pearce, who's backstage, kind of tries to get involved because he's like, well, what about Jimmy? You going to fine him too? And he's like, Jimmy didn't do anything wrong. He's supposed to be here. Jey isn't. So Adam Pearce kind of says to Nick Aldis, well, let the games begin, as both men, Jey and Pearce, get escorted out of the building. We then get a Logan Paul promo in the ring, and this was a great promo. Like Logan, hate Logan, whatever. This was a great promo from him. He talks about his boxing match about a week ago and how you could barely call it a fight. That's an insult to combat. He then turns his attention to Rey Mysterio and says he could go for Rey's respect, but Logan already has respect. Says he could go for Rey's legacy, but Logan Paul has his own legacy. But Rey Mysterio does have something that he needs, the United States Championship. And he talks about how he's beaten Rey Mysterio once before when he fought Rey and Dom at WrestleMania. And then he goes back and he talks about, the last time he beat Rey, Dominic was still his son. The last time he beat Rey, LA Knight didn't even have a job. And the last time he beat Rey, Roman Reigns still showed up on a regular basis to wrestle. And needless to say, that was like my favorite part of the promo, because it's like, damn, he's out of line, but he's not wrong. Rey Mysterio then comes out and he starts talking about how Logan reminds him of his son Dom. Natural ability, dripping with passion, huge career ahead of him, but a big mouth. Rey goes on and he accepts the challenge, and it will be Logan Paul versus Rey Mysterio for the United States Championship at Crown Jewel. And I'm sorry, maybe I'm alone in this thought process. I want Logan Paul to take the title. I do. Rey Mysterio doesn't need the United States Championship at this point in his career. Period. Logan Paul can make some major moves for WWE by becoming United States champion. Every show that he does is impulsive. That belt just be sitting there right there in the main frame. That's advertisement for WWE. That's promotion. Logan Paul gets red carpets and big shows. He's going to be showing up with that United States title. That's publicity. That helps to move the needle for the WWE. Will Logan have a long reign? No. maybe till Rumble. I wouldn't see him holding it till Mania because he'd have to be around more. Not that often. I mean, hell, look at Roman Reigns. But he'd have to at least be Survivor Series, if there's a December show, Rumble, Chamber, in order to get to Mania. He'd have to at least be around for those 5 pay-per-views if he wins at a Crown Jewel, and probably a SmackDown or 2 leading up to it. I think Logan can clear his schedule enough to make it happen and still engage in his other endeavors, his prime drinks and whatever. But I think putting the strap on him would be big. And it would be giving a celebrity the championship for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons, a la David Arquette as the WCW champion. Because even though putting the strap on David Arquette back in WCW was to move the needle, was to get people talking, and it worked to a certain extent, David Arquette was not the performer that Logan Paul is. Logan Paul is a natural gifted athlete. Again, like him or hate him, put his personality and his character aside. When he gets in there in the ring, arguably he's better than some of the people that wrestle full-time on the roster. And that's a shame. That's a shame. We then get our second match of the evening. A-Town Down Under versus Dragon Lee and Cameron Grimes. This was a solid match with a good showing by Dragon Lee and Cameron Grimes. However, it was very predictable considering neither one of them have really been featured on TV all that much. Dragon Lee a little bit more so here recently. Cameron Grimes hasn't been on TV that much since getting drafted earlier this year. Austin Theory hits an A-Town down, gets the pinfall on Grimes, end a match. We then get a sit-down interview where Kathy Kelly talks to Kevin Owens about being separated from Sammy, about his move to SmackDown. And he kind of talks about how it really sucks, especially since they never got a legitimate shot to get their belts back. He talks about wanting matches with Sheamus and Rey Mysterio, and he wants to work with the Brutes and the LWO. And he asks Kathy a random question, which I thought was really funny in retrospect. He asked her if there was anybody that she would like to punch in the face. Which sounds like a really odd question, but it's like he's talking about all these people that even though he may like them and respect them, they're still people that he just wants to haul off and deck because they're so smarmy. And he's like, is there anybody like that, Kathy, that you just want to haul off and smack? And she thinks about it for a minute as the segment ends. We then get our main event match. 3 matches in a 2-hour show. Io Sky versus Charlotte Flair for the Women's Championship. And this was a fantastic match again. The numbers game definitely came into play here. Dakota and Bayley being ringside played to Io's advantage. Charlotte dominated for the early goings, as Charlotte do, but Io was able to come back, and when Charlotte went for a second spear on Io Sky, she used the championship belt to kind of play as a barricade and, shield her. So Charlotte hits the belt. Io's able to get the victory. Afterwards, the Damage Control girls start to try to gain up on Charlotte Flair. Bianca Belair makes her return. Hits the ring, makes the save for Charlotte, because you figure Io pinned Bianca to become champion. Just not even a couple of minutes after winning the title off of Asuka. So you've got that unfinished business between Bianca and Io Sky. Probably going to end up setting that up for either Crown Jewel or Survivor Series. We'll have to see what happens this week on the programs. Still have a couple of weeks before Crown Jewel. And we've already got a 5-way for Rhea's title at Crown Jewel. So we'll see if they're going to add any more women to the card over there. So that wraps things up for SmackDown. And again, 3 matches in a 2-hour show. I love WWE. I am more pro WWE than I am AEW, although I do enjoy the AEW product too. I try to ride the line. I try not to be a tribalist and, bury the other company in favor of one company, etc. But man, if I paid money to go to see SmackDown live and I only got 3 matches and everything else was either a promo shown on the Tron or a promo in the ring, I'd have gone to the box office and asked for my money back. I would have seeked out management something. That is horseshit. Complete and utter horseshit. In comparison, Rampage gave 4 matches in 1 hour. 1 hour, 4 matches. Granted, one of them was a squash. But we still got 2 out of 3 falls match. We had a number 1 contenders match. And we had a fantastic women's title match. Or non-title, excuse me, but it's a fantastic women's main event. And a squash. We only had 3 matches in 2 hours. Everything else was backstage segments. I would have been pissed. Especially since WWE doesn't come to California as much as it goes to some of their other cities. We get them out here maybe twice a year, while other areas maybe get them 3 times a year. What do you guys think about that? 3 matches in 2 hours. Does that seem okay to you? Let me know. Once again, in order to break up the monotony before we get to Collision, going to run another very quick trailer promo. You saw the watch-alongs that are coming up between tomorrow and WrestleMania. Now we're going to show you a little something from the Jeff Meacham Network, Multiversa Media. We are back, so that is everything coming up through the rest of October and into November across the Jeff Meacham Network and the greater multiverse of media. Going back to my point about SmackDown, Keen Mike says, unless it's a go-home show for a pay-per-view, nah, that's not cool. All right, so I'm glad it's not just me that feels that way. So next up, we have Collision, which aired on Saturday, took place live on Saturday from the FedEx Forum in Memphis, Tennessee. We had Bryan Danielson versus Andrade El Idolo start the match off. And this was a great match to kick off the show, if I'm being real. Match was hyped as a dream match, despite the fact that they met on SmackDown in 2018, which was referred to on commentary. Tremendous counter for counter chain wrestling, with Andrade dominating a good chunk of the early goings. As we got deeper into the match, more high risks are taken. Andrade drop kicks Danielson off the top rope, follows it up from a moonsault onto the outside. Andrade locks in the figure four at one point and then attempts to transition into Charlotte Flair's figure eight, but Danielson's able to get to the ropes. After a few quick pinfall attempts, Danielson is able to steal the victory and beat Andrade in this just, again, phenomenal opening contest. Post-match, Danielson and Andrade shake hands. The lights go out, and when the lights go back on, Malachi Black is in the ring. He kicks Danielson in the head. Lights go out again, and Malachi Black disappears before the Blackpool Combat Club can hit the ring for the save. Again, this was just a great opening contest. I enjoyed the return of Malachi Black. I really enjoy the House of Black gimmick and angle, despite it being Judgment Day-esque in its execution or Wyatt family-esque in its execution. It's a great concept and one of the things I look forward to most on my television screen every week. And I know once Julia Hart comes back, she just recently got married. Congratulations to her. Once she comes back from her time off and her honeymoon and she rejoins the rest of her House of Black mates, I'm curious to see what goes down, especially with the Sky Blue Willow Nightingale parts. Are they going to add them to the mix and have a women's trio as well as the male trio? Darby Allin then speaks, gives a little video package on the whole Nick Wayne situation and attack. I don't care about this storyline, if I'm being honest. The whole back and forth between Darby and Nick Wayne. I'm more interested in Christian Cage and his portion in it than I am the whole Darby Nick Wayne portion of it. I want to know how Christian got into Nick Wayne's head. I want to know why Nick Wayne would turn on his brother, so to speak, and his mom. And we got that a little bit last week in the interview on Dynamite with Jim Ross. But Darby and his promo really seemed like he was trying to turn it to be more about Darby. And it needs to be more about Nick Wayne. And that's kind of what Nick Wayne said in that interview, is that everything he did, it always came back to Darby. We then got our next match. Excuse me. Another Sky Blue match, taking on Hollywood Haley. Squash match. Sky finally gets a victory, considering the fact that the last few matches she's had to take the L. So it was good to see her get a victory here. Maybe start to gain some momentum with this darkness seeping inside of her. We then get another match of the Guns representing Bullet Club Gold versus the Outrunners. Another simple squash match, nothing fancy. After the match, we see on the video screen the devil has appeared. And the big question is, who's the devil? Is it MJF? Is it somebody else? Adam Cole and Roddy are still on injury. So is it one of them? Is it? I'm trying to get a good look at the devil because ever since Wardlow's return and having the MJF on his tape, but the guy in the devil mask seems like he's too small to be Wardlow. What's up, Cleaver? Top of the morning to you. Good to see you, man. Hope you're feeling better. We then get an Orange Cassidy interview, and it's your standard Orange Cassidy fare. He's just so nonchalant about the questions being asked. Chris Statlander comes in, crashes the interview, says that she needs to get a pump in before she has her title match. So she picks up the interviewer, Lexi, throws her on her shoulder and starts doing squashes while Lexi is still trying to interview Orange Cassidy. It was funny, but it was a bit of a waste when it comes right down to it. We then go to our next match, and it is a Memphis street fight between Jeff Jarrett and Eddie Kingston. Excuse me. This was a pretty fun match to watch, but it was your standard street fight. It wasn't anything extravagant. There were a few spots that they did that harkened back to some old Memphis Championship Wrestling street fights, designed on purpose. We even had Dave Brown on commentary. I didn't know the name Dave Brown. Thankfully, they gave us a little bit of information about him. Apparently, he's a classic Memphis wrestling commentator who actually called Jeff Jarrett's very first match when he was only 18 years old. Jeff Jarrett was able to use some shenanigans thanks to the rest of his team, get the victory over Kingston. So Jay Lethal is going to get his shot at Eddie Kingston for the Ring of Honor Championship. I'm not sure if they're going to pull the trigger for this at Full Gear or if they're going to make us wait until December and Final Battle and really build up the animosity between the two. I think the better bet is to hold off until Final Battle because that's December. That gives us an entire month and a half still to really build this story. And that's one of the things that AEW and by proxy Ring of Honor are seriously lacking on is their storytelling when it comes to building these matches. More often than not, we have something go down on Rampage or Collision, and we hotshot it on Dynamite the following week. I feel something like this that's been bubbling and percolating for the next little bit really needs an opportunity to bubble over. I'm not a big Eddie Kingston fan, but he's a hell of a promo. Jay Lethal's a hell of a promo. So we need to step by step, inch by inch this until we get to Final Battle. Yeah, Cleaver coming through with the ketchup and mustard working overtime. And Eddie needs a long story. We then had an interview with the Acclaimed ahead of their Battle of the Belts match. Kind of standard fare with them. Max Caster's been getting goofy lately with the way he seems to be drooling over different wrestlers. I don't know. The Acclaimed are better than that. They need to stop being so goofy. I don't mind a fun gimmick, but if they're going to do backstage promos like that, they either need to stick to Platinum Max doing his raps, or they need to let Billy or Bowens be the one to do the backstage interviews. That way, Max can save his talking for his rhymes. We then get our fifth match, Action Andretti versus Miro. CJ Perry comes out to the ringside area in order to observe the match. Andretti puts up a decent fight, but it's basically a squash for Miro. We then get a JAS 2.0 interview, and Daddy Magic makes a joke, and everyone begins to storm off, leaving just Cool Hand Angelo Parker and Lexi, our interviewer. And Ruby Soho comes in at this point and asks if his family has fallen apart, to which he kind of says, yeah, acknowledges it. And she says that she can relate. And he throws a jab at her, like, yeah, but after tonight, he's going to be a champion. And she snaps on him, tells him to get out of her shot, and begins to cut her promo regarding her title shot at Chris Statlander. Or no, she's got a match against Hikaru Shida on Dynamite, excuse me. Yeah, the JAS has run its course, Cleaver, but I said this when I did the Rampage portion of my review. You weren't here for that, so I'll go ahead and repeat it. I really like the chemistry between Daddy Magic Matt Menard and Cool Hand Angelo Parker. As long as they stay together as a cohesive tag team for the tag division, once the JAS break up, I'm fine. Jake Hager can go his own way. Garcia can start building the career he needs. Anna Jay can go towards a women's title, maybe challenge Stat for the TBS title. When she comes back from her maternity leave, Ty Conte can maybe team up with Anna Jay and they can do some tag team stuff. But I want to keep Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange together. Otherwise, I don't see them fitting in anywhere on the roster. They're not going to be TNT contenders. They're definitely not going to be world title contenders. They might get the occasional international shot, but I don't see them getting any kind of push if they don't stay as a tag team. Oh, okay. I did not know that they were in NXT together. That was before my time watching it. Good to know. We then get an Eddie Kingston promo, and man, he's just fired up. He's talking about why he made Jay Lethal jump through so many hoops in order to get a title shot. Says that Lethal has lost his way, that he's now just Jeff Jarrett's bitch. And he's going to beat the crap out of him in front of his beautiful mother. And how much it pains Eddie to have to do that, because him and Jay used to be friends. So he knows Jay's mother on a personal level. And the fact that he's probably going to have to beat the crap out of him in front of his mother just brought the emotion out of Eddie. And again, I'm not an Eddie Kingston fan for reasons. I had bad personal experiences with him when he would come out here to Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I'm just going to leave it at that. So I have my issues with Eddie, but I will take nothing away from his promo. He's a hell of a talker. Shitty wrestler, hell of a talker. We then get our sixth match of the night. FTR versus Bad Thad Brown and Darian Bankston. Yes, you heard that name right. Bad Thad Brown. This match barely gets going when the lights go out again, and when they come up, Malachi Black is in the ring. Lights go out once more, and this time when they come on, he's joined by the rest of the House of Black. And they begin a brawl. They start jumping FTR. Chaos ensues. We then get our main event after everything gets cleared out of the ring, and it's the BCC, Claudio Castagnoli and Willer Yuta versus the AEW Tag Team Champions, Big Bill and Absolute Ricky Starks. Intense matchup between these four men. Yuta taking most of the punishment, as well as Starks on the other side of things. Starks was able to score the pinfall for the win, and then chaos ensued even more as the House of Black came out and started interfering. Bryan Danielson then tried to come down and help even the odds. Then FTR came out to help even the odds, all leading up until Jon Moxley hit the ring. And, in true Jon Moxley fashion, takes him forever to get to the ring because, his boys are getting the crap beat out of him, but he's got to take his long, drawn-out entrance through the crowd instead of just making a beeline down the ramp to help make the save for his boys. But I digress. So if anybody was keeping count, 7 matches in 2 hours, SmackDown had 3. Again, I'm not trying to compare contrast companies. I've said a couple times, I'm more Team WWE than Team AEW. But that's just absurd. All right, so this is moving a little bit quicker than I expected. Normally my shows go about an hour, and we're just a little over an hour in at this point. I'm going to take one final promotional commercial, and we will be back to discuss Battle of the Belts. Do not go anywhere. All kinds of cool stuff coming up on our open mic night specials, which are monthly. Open mic night is every week across the Jeff Meacham Network, Multiversa Media, Saturday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern. But once a month, we do a special theme where it's either a game night or it's a karaoke night. This past weekend, we played Haunted Hangman with some of our contestants. You can go check that out in the archives on any of the Multiversa Media channels. You can find it on the Jeff Meacham Network, Greg Cherry brand, Jay Hebert Studios, Simple Man brand, and the Casa D18 Studios, of course. Yeah, we want you back soon, Cleaver. Maybe we can get you on for a karaoke night. Make an ass of yourself with the rest of us. But yeah, we always have fun on those programs. We get some of our fans on the show to play the games, be part of the shenanigans, if you will. So we're going to get now into the last thing we're going to discuss, and that was Battle of the Belts, which happened the same night as Collision. So from the FedEx Forum in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, if I'm being honest, I almost didn't cover this because when I heard it was announced, I honestly, I honestly got a little bit upset when I heard about this being announced because it went toe-to-toe with Bound for Glory. And I thought that was a shitty thing for Tony Khan to do. especially when he bitches about WWE going toe to toe with the AEW product. But he's got no problem going toe to toe with the Impact product. So I almost didn't cover this, but I figured, I've got to be unbiased, got to cover all the week's wrestling on TV. Only thing you're not going to see covered here on a regular basis are the pay per views, the PLEs, because those happen on the weekend. So if I try to cover that along with Rampage, Collision, and SmackDown on a regular basis, we really will be here for looks like at least 2 hours, because I'm shocked we've gotten this done as quickly as we have. But again, I digress. So Battle of the Belts kicked off with everybody's favorite slacker, Orange Cassidy, taking on John Silver. The yeah, that's accurate, but I also think that the pictures that they were showing were where you could see the hard camera, because I think I saw Samoa Joe and his back was towards the picture, which means he would have been facing the hard camera. So if we're being fair, the images circulating might have been just showing the hard camera side, where they usually don't put a whole lot of people because of having space for the camera and everything. But if you see the pictures that are circulating to Bound for Glory, pretty damn good turnout for Impact Wrestling. But Orange Cassidy versus John Silver starts things off for the International Championship. The BCC FTR brawl shenanigans are still in the ring. And as they begin to come back to the backstage area, they start to clear out. Cassidy shoulder checks John Moxley, and a brawl ensues between the two of them that security needs to get out there and separate. Keep in mind, it was Moxley who defeated Orange Cassidy for the International Championship in the first place, and then Moxley got knocked silly, suffered a concussion, dropped the belt to Ray Fenix in their match, and then Fenix recently dropped it back to Orange Cassidy. So kind of playing up the tension there between the two of them, since Mox is the one who dethroned Cassidy. Finally get to the match, and this was a good opening match. I really enjoyed it. I've said numerous times, every match Cassidy seems to impress me more and more. Lots of back and forth action between the two. Alex Reynolds, member of the Dark Order, was at ringside supporting John Silver. Kept trying to cheat on Silver's behalf, and Orange Cassidy was able to overcome the odds, hit the orange punch, pick up the victory. Still your international champion, Orange Cassidy. We then get a backstage interview with Andrade El Idolo, and he's asked about the match that he just had on Collision against Bryan Danielson. And CJ Perry comes up and kind of offers her services as a manager, something for him to think about, and she walks off. CJ, of course, married to Miro, but they've been doing this angle where Miro didn't want her to get involved in his affairs, and she showed up anyways. So he's kind of distancing himself from her, at least on television. So she's been trying to find some kind of charge to lead to prosperity and to the promised land, since her husband seemingly doesn't want her on his side. We then get our next title match for Battle of the Belts, Ring of Honor TV title match, as Samoa Joe defends his title against Tony Nese. Nese and Smart Mark Sterling start things off in the ring. They run down the crowd, talking about how they look like a bunch of fat Elvises. Joe comes out and just Tony Nese didn't have a chance. You knew that because it was an already in the ring situation. We didn't even get his entrance on TV. Makes short work of him, hits the muscle buster for the win. Joe then cuts a promo on the mic directed towards MJF, telling him that he's coming for that AEW World Championship. So we've already got MJF versus Jay White scheduled for Full Gear. We've got the Devil lurking around, whoever that is. We've got Joe with his sights set on the title. Will MJF even be able to make it to 2024 as champion? We will have to see. Next match of the night, Chris Statlander defends her TBS championship against Willow Nightingale. Another phenomenal women's match. Both women laid it all on the line. More aggression coming out of Willow, again, ever since taking the mist, kind of leading down that path to the darkness. She wasn't as bubbly as she normally is, but she wasn't as dark as Sky Blue has been getting. I think they said on commentary that she's at like 50% of her bubbliness. So Stat ends up hitting the 450 for the win. Sky Blue comes out post-match as Willow is about to shake Stat's hand, and she stops her from shaking the hand. But Willow ends up doing it anyways, showing that the darkness has just not consumed her the way it has Sky Blue. Again, going to have to see where this develops, but I'm enjoying the Julia Hart, Willow Nightingale, Sky Blue saga, and I want to see where it goes with each passing week. We then get a backstage interview with Orange Cassidy again, and he talks about how Moxley got up in his face, how Bryan and Claudio got in his face. And he doesn't care about Wheeler Yuta. And he challenges. He says, if you guys want to get in my face and get in my business, Bryan Danielson and Claudio Castagnoli, how about we have a match on Dynamite where my partner is going to be Kazuchika Okada? And it is official. So it's going to be Cassidy and Okada versus the BCC on Dynamite. This is going to be a banger. I am so looking forward to watching this match and reporting on it because Okada is just chef's kiss. I love watching his matches. Our main event for the evening, trios titles on the line, the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass defending their titles against Daddy Magic Matt Menard, Cool Hand Angelo Parker, and Daniel Garcia of the JAS, now known as 2.0. Very fun match, but I'm not sure if it should have main evented. It was fun nonetheless, though. Crowd wanted Garcia to do his dance. They kept chanting, do your dance, but it kept getting halted at every turn. Finally, when Garcia was able to do it, he ended up getting hit with the Faymaster, followed by a double team from the Acclaimed, Platinum Max, and Angelo Bowens. Acclaimed got the victory, retained their titles. They retained their titles at the show. I'm a little tired of seeing Battle of the Belts shows where no belts change hands. I can only think of one time I saw Battle of the Belts and the belt actually changed hands. And it was Scorpio Sky versus Sammy Guevara for the TNT title. If a title changed hands prior to that, it was a show I didn't see. But I cannot think of a Battle of the Belts since then that had a title change. I think it's getting a little bit ridiculous. We need to have some title changes on this show. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. But that is it for the weekend in wrestling. And yes, I do believe that this is similar to the Alexa turning dark, joining the Fiend angle. I wasn't there for all of that, but I did see part of it. I think that's probably kind of what they're going for here. Whew. I know I said that the last commercial was going to be the last one, but I have one that I really want to play and talk about with you guys. Quick 30-second spot. So I'm going to run that, talk about what's coming up, and then I'm going to get out of here for the day. So just hang tight with me. Apologize for the deception. Be back right after this 30-second spot. Lots of stuff coming across the channels on Halloween Day. It is going to be an insane day of content for all of us across the multiverse of media. And so I wanted to make sure I got that plug out there. Regular shenanigans here for the love of wrestling, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Dads at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 Eastern. Stat Boy Sports Bar happy hour once again on Halloween, 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. Halloween Havoc Night 2 coverage, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. And I haven't got confirmation just yet, but I believe Jeff Meacham may end up doing Talk Wrestling at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern after Halloween Havoc, because with it being the same week as Crown Jewel, the No DQ review and or predictions for No DQ is going to be on the Thursday slot. So lots of stuff going on Halloween Day across the multiverse. All that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining me here today. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, when I will be discussing everything that happened on Raw tonight. So make sure you tune in for that. And until then, I am the Renegade JJ Williams, and I will talk to y'all later.
The Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate you.